In November, we hiked through Haleakala National Park, which looks less like Hawaii and more like what I'd imagine the moon or Mars to look like. We left from Andy's apartment in Kihei and drove about 40 minutes to the base of the mountain. From the base, it's about a 40-minute drive to the summit on Haleakala Highway, and it's a beautiful winding road, and make sure you watch out for cows. You'll have to show your National Parks Pass about halfway up the mountain road, and we brought ours from Washington so that we didn't have to pay to enter. It's so wild to drive from sea level in Kihei when you're right by the ocean where it's 80 degrees, all the way up to Haleakala at 10,000 feet. This hike is definitely unique compared to most that I do since we started at the summit instead of at the bottom of the mountain. You'll start at the Summit Visitor Center at the Sliding Sands Trailhead, hike down into the crater, across the crater floor, and then back out to your car at the Halemau'u Trailhead. Then we drove back up to the top of the mountain to catch the sunset. We drove about 3/4 of the way up and parked at the Halemau'u Trailhead. We took out our packs, packed up the car, and from there we hitchhiked the remaining 6 miles to the trailhead just below the summit. This was all of our first times hitchhiking, and we were a little bit nervous about it, but we picked the perfect stranger to drive us the 6 miles to the top of the mountain. Here we are at the Sliding Sands Trailhead, and we get to look all the way into the crater to see where we're about to go. And we have about 11.2 miles to hike down and up back to our car. So from the trailhead, you can see an expansive view down into the crater floor and across what we're about to hike. So that was really neat to be able to see that before we got started. And it's really just like the most beautiful place I've ever been. That's where we're going. We hiked nearly 3,000 feet down into the crater of the volcano and through the lava fields to cross the crater floor. And we passed several of these colorful cinder cones, which you can see in the distance, and trekked through a lot of sand. One of the things that I loved about this trail is that you could see it sprawled out before you for miles, and it was just this beautiful single track going through all of the sand and craters down to the bottom. Obviously, we had to stop and take some pics on the way down because the scenery was just so beautiful. We reached our first trail junction after 3.9 miles of climbing down into the crater, and then we took a left toward the Holua Cabin. This trail was so sandy, it was like walking on a beach for miles, and I was really honestly struggling to keep up with them. Misty. Andy B. The runner. My brother Adam always says that I'm the one to blame because I won't stop taking photos and videos, and that's why I fall behind, which, fair. But how can you not want to take a photo every 2 seconds here? It's so pretty. Some clouds rolled into the crater and it just looked so cool. I am just really glad that we got to see both the really sunny weather and then the clouds roll in. We got the best of both worlds. We managed to find some life at the bottom of the crater, which was definitely surprising since there's not much color amidst the lava and rocks and sand. We approached Holua Cabin, which looks so tiny in the distance at the foot of a towering cliff. There are 3 cabins and 2 campgrounds inside the crater for hikers, but they are reserved so far in advance, like months in advance, and we didn't get the chance to go to the cabin, but it made for a great lunch spot, and we met this really nice couple who made their own dried starfruit for hiking snacks, and it was really good and almost convinced me to get a dehydrator to make my own. These nenes, or Hawaiian geese, joined us for lunch. And once we reached the cabin at 7.3 miles, we still had 3.9 miles left to reach the car. See those switchbacks in the distance? We have to hike up those 20 plus switchbacks, gaining 2,500 feet to exit the crater and to end back at our car. We crossed a beautiful grassy field to get to the bottom of the cliff in the distance. As we climbed up the switchbacks, we had an expansive view over the grassy section of the crater floor below. From about 3/4 of the way up, you can see all of the switchbacks that you just climbed, and it's really cool to see all the people climbing on the trails, and they're so tiny and small compared to your vantage point. So we finally made it to the top of the 20 switchbacks and had a short walk back to the car. In total, our Haleakala trek was 11.2 miles with 1,600 feet of elevation gain and 3,000 feet of loss. We averaged around 15.5 minutes per mile, and our moving time was just under 3 hours. I don't even know how you could think up a better way to cap off this hike and this day, but we were greeted by an amazing cloud inversion over Maui, followed by an equally amazing sunset.